early on in our practice, sometimes we want to say to people, don't worry. I mean, we can do that. We can do that. And sometimes we offer false hope. And so when you asked about empowerment, and I was thinking about this as I was on my way here, in my opinion, I think it's a better thing to say to somebody to acknowledge that you don't feel powerful. And so let's start working on how to get your feet back under you so that you can come back to a feeling of safety and confidence and move through this in a way that will help you get back to where you need to go.
Welcome to the Divorce Circle podcast with me, Sabina Bubber, and part 2 of my conversation with Karen Redmond. Have you ever seen relationships improve after the divorce because of how the process was handled? And could you maybe share a success story?
I have seen many relationships improve post-separation. It's interesting because sometimes, we, throughout our lives, you get into relationships that maybe aren't the best relationship for you. You're too young or you're, in a certain situation. And when you realize that's not the best relationship for you, if you can exit, one of the phrases I use with my own daughters is exit through the front door. Exiting through the back door would be cheating or treating your spouse badly, but exiting through the front door is a level of maturity where people can end a relationship and say, this relationship isn't working for me anymore. And I have seen many people who manage their relationships and the end of their relationships in a collaborative way or through mediation. And this one particular story, the woman had a Dalmatian, and so that Christmas they sent me their Christmas card, and it was her, the Dalmatian, their 2 children, her ex-husband, and his girlfriend, all wearing Dalmatian pajamas underneath the Christmas tree. And I said to them that it's one of the best. I still have it, and this was probably 12, 13 years ago. I still have this card on my shelf in my office. And that's an example of people who moved through a process and then co-parented their children together. The male partner went on to have another child with his new partner, and they holidayed together. They went to Belize a few years ago, and they know how important it is to me to send me the smiley pictures. My legal assistant loves it as well. And they're just a shining example of collaboration and kindness. And I mean, energetically, look at your face when I'm telling you this story. Energetically, imagine their children.
So good
Right?
for the kids.
Yeah.
So good for the kids.
Yeah.
And, when you said earlier about, flash forward 10 years, how do you want your kids to reflect on it? I feel really grateful for those children that it doesn't matter if you're not together. I think, divorce happens, and the best thing you can do for your children is to be happy. Mm-hmm. And that may not be together. And if that looks different, I think the world is now more accepting. And so whether you've got 2 new families and extra kids along the way, as long as everybody is happy, those are well-adjusted kids.
Yeah. I have another really quick story about a couple that separated, and they both ended up, they were in a heterosexual relationship and they separated, and now they're both in same-sex relationships. And they also holiday together and have Christmas together, and their 2 children also are friends with the new partner's children. It's an extraordinary gathering when you see them all together.
Yeah, that's remarkable. That's a great story. I love that. So how are finances typically handled during a collaborative divorce? Is full financial disclosure mandatory in this process?
Full financial disclosure is crucial to any process, whether it's litigation, mediation, or collaborative practice. If you don't have everything on the table, right down to that last First Credit Union $25 shares account that you get that piece of paper once a year, every single thing has to be put on the table. You can't make a decision about your finances until you know what's there. Whether your spouse is claiming exclusions or whether you're claiming exclusions, everything has to be identified. And when you have assets that are being identified, the first step is to bring them all to the table. The second step is to receive advice about it. Because, for example, you may not know whether an asset has a latent tax liability associated with it. If there's a rental property and there's been a capital gain, what if you decide to give your spouse the family home and you're going to take the rental property and you think, well, they're both worth, $1 million or $2 million? Fair's fair. Not so. You have to have one of the most important things. I think for me as a lawyer, I became a farmer a few years ago, and it's been incredibly humbling to learn all the things that I don't know. And when I talk to people about their finances, one of the things that's really important is to know what you don't know. And if you're not an accountant or you're not a tax lawyer, then you need to get professional advice so that when you're making a decision about dividing a portfolio, an RSP, a family home, a rental property, what is the net number that you're talking about? So the answer to your question is it's absolutely critical.
When it comes to parenting plans, how does collaborative law help protect the emotional well-being of the children?
Because it requires the parents to do more than talk about numbers. It demands of parents that you move out of the framework of, if you've ever heard the word 50-50, you see that, the furrowed brow, 50-50. So when we meet with people, parents, and we say, okay, well, thank you for telling me that what you'd like is shared parenting. Let's talk about the kids and, what day do they have ballet? And what does it look like for a 2-year-old versus a 12-year-old to be in a shared parenting arrangement? And is that practical? And what's in the best interest of the child? So when you formulate a parenting plan, we have in this town, in Vancouver, we have the resources, the parenting coaches are extraordinary. And if you take a couple who are working with their lawyers and you say, I'm going to introduce you to a parenting coach, a divorce specialist, a child specialist, so that now if you're separating and your children are 2 and 3 and we're talking about, who's having Easter weekend and who's having Thanksgiving, you've got a resource to help you. Somebody that's not a lawyer, somebody that's not going to, we're not talking about RSPs and family property, we're talking about your kids. And that resource will be with you when you start talking about driving lessons or when you're talking about screen time or boyfriends or university applications. So using a parenting or formulating a parenting plan provides a much broader approach to what's important for kids, because a separation agreement can say, kids are on a 7 and 7, child support will be paid, and that's it. But then what happens about handover? What about taking ski equipment back and forth? What about who's showing up at soccer practice? What about if I can't look after the kids for 24 hours in my parenting time, do I actually have to call you and ask you for help? Those are the details that go into a parenting plan that make life for the child of separated parents much, much easier.
And so when you're talking about what's in the best interest of the child, what if the child wants to express interest in what's in their best interest? If the child wants to express what they think is in their best interest, how old are they usually before we start listening to what the kids have to say about what they want?
I like to think of it from the perspective of an intact family as well as a separated family. If you were making a decision in your family about your 6-year-old and whether your 6-year-old was going to, be on the back of a Sea-Doo, for example, you would use your common sense as a parent. And what if your 6-year-old really wanted to? Then what? So in a separated family, the answer is the same. It depends. So it depends on the age of the child, the emotional maturity of the child. If the parents can't decide, then the child can be listened to, absolutely. So what we say is the children have a voice, not a choice, and it depends on the issue. So what about if a child wanted to go to a certain school and one parent felt strongly and the other person felt exactly the opposite? Well, there's resources for the child to have a conversation with a neutral third person, but that child's not going to make a decision if they're 6. A 14-year-old child is going to make a decision, but there's no age that I can tell you a court would definitively listen to a child. So
there's no prescribed age for this. It's just situational.
The Family Law Act now says that children will be heard unless it's inappropriate to do so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Family Relations Act said it differently, but the Family Law Act now creates the default to listening to a child, not allowing the child to decide, but listening to the child.
I like that. And so, and usually that's done through a neutral third party where there's no parental influence, I'm assuming?
That's the hope.
Yeah. Okay. One of the questions I wanted to ask was about inherited property. So how does that fall into law? Because I get that question a lot. Oh, I got a $100,000 inheritance. I used it to pay down the mortgage. Now we're selling the house. Do I get that money back?
That's a great question. You're going to hate my answer is that it depends, but it does depend. When you inherit property, the starting point is that it's yours and you can keep it. And you're going to need to show when you got it and what you did with it. If you inherited $100,000 and you paid off your family visas and you went on a lot of vacations and that money no longer exists, you're not going to be able to claim that inheritance back. But if you have a clear paper trail and you can show when you got it and where it went and that it still exists, in all likelihood, you're going to be able to retain that as your excluded property. But I don't think any lawyer is going to give you a definitive, yes, I can make sure you retain that property. It depends on the facts.
Okay, that's good to know. So what advice do you have for parents navigating co-parenting during and after divorce?
To use the resources that are available in terms of parenting coaches, divorce coaches, parenting courses that they can take together. You're not alone. You're not trying to navigate something that somebody else hasn't gone through. And if the more detail you have in a parenting plan, the better you're going to be able to navigate things like the soccer sidelines and the using the RESP. If you work with a professional who can anticipate some of the road bumps that you're going to encounter, they can help you ride them more smoothly.
And I think the important word you said was work with a professional. And I say that because your sisters, brothers, uncles, mother is not necessarily the best person to get advice from. Is that right? Maybe they don't know the impact to the children, or maybe your own mother or parents may have an emotional attachment, or your friends, your girlfriends, your hive necessarily may not be the best choice in terms of getting advice when it comes to what's in the best interest of your family post-divorce.
Well, we all have emotional support. We all have emotional support from friends or family. And it's important to listen to people who we've chosen to help us through a particular process. That's not to say that our neighbors, say someone like you, Sabina, and I've said this to many of my clients who've been through a process, and when I see them come out the other end, I will say, if you have the opportunity to speak in a classroom or to a group of women, you should, because you have learned so much. I've had several of my clients become paralegals, legal assistants after going through a separation process. So I wouldn't say that you can't listen to people who've been through it, but anybody who's been through it would know enough to say, let me tell you about my experience. Let me offer some suggestions. But you're right. It is dangerous when somebody will say, someone maybe too close will say, well, you should get that. Take that kind of information and park it in a certain place and then hire a professional. Or, it would be like going to the gym and listening to 14 different people tell you to use a piece of equipment a certain way. If you're going to hire a personal trainer, you're going to listen to what that personal trainer says, and maybe they're going to do it differently than the other 4 personal trainers, but you need to choose a path and then stay. It's not a straight path. It never is, but stay on the path.
How can someone going through the divorce process stay empowered through the process when emotions are high and trust can be low?
That's a really good question. And it's funny because I had a client ask me about power yesterday. I think power is about having your feet on the ground, about feeling resourced and feeling safe with the resource team that you've chosen. But power is also a delicate notion. And I think what I would say to somebody, rather than feeling empowered, I would want the person to feel safe. So how would I help a person feel safe is I would be giving them information, giving them resources, and I'd be listening to their needs. And quite frankly, referring them to professionals that I think they need. It's wobbly. I mean, when you're going through a trauma, it's wobbly. And if you are going to pretend, or if you, early on in our practice, sometimes we we want to say to people, don't worry. I mean, we can do that. We can do that. And sometimes we offer false hope. And so when you asked about empowerment, and I was thinking about this as I was on my way here, in my opinion, I think it's a better thing to say to somebody to acknowledge that you don't feel powerful. And so let's start working on how to get your feet back under you so that you can come back to a feeling of safety and confidence and move through this in a way that will help you get back to where you need to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important to get that confidence back. And some people didn't have the confidence going in, but they get the confidence after. So that's something to look forward to as well.
And when they say they want to be empowered, sometimes it's because they perceive that the other person has all the power and control. And that's another myth that I like to try and help people, or that's another view that I like to help people step away from. You can't give somebody power. You can feel that they have it. And I think you can acknowledge in yourself, well, I don't feel like I have it. Okay, that's interesting. And so what do you want to do about that? Rather than blame someone else for having the power or try and get the power, that's more like a tug of war. And I think there's just a gentler way to sit with the discomfort of a separation process and move to a place that feels like you're on more steady ground.
Yes, absolutely. And at the end of the day, empowerment comes from within.
Absolutely. I can't give it to you. And that's actually exactly what I said to the client yesterday. I said, I can't give it to you, and I also can't take it away from you.
Yeah. Wow. What are some of the most important mindset shifts you've helped people navigate in a healthier way?
I think the starting point is you're not alone. The mindset of feeling helpless. Typically, the female spouse will come into the separation process feeling behind in terms of financial literacy. And if the female spouse has been out of the workforce, she will want to be trying to catch up. So the mindset shift is, I want to normalize where you are in your process. And from the male spouse's point of view, there may be frustration at, I thought that this would be happening and I thought that this would be happening faster. So the mindset shift is moving towards patience with the process, patience for yourself, and then also recognizing that your life is going to look different. And a great mediator, Gail Raffanel, I remember hearing her speak once, and she said, when people come to me to mediate, I'll say to them, yes, this is a train wreck. This is a train wreck. I cannot stop the train wreck, but I can slow the train wreck and I can help you manage it. And if you are willing to sign on for that, then I can work with you. And that's actually a really good way of looking at things. Separations, it's like a renovation. It's going to take longer than you want. You're not going to get everything you want, and it's going to be more expensive than you think. And if you can come into, that's the shift is, okay, I gotta come at it like that.
Yeah.
And if you can think of a renovation as, sort of like Christmas, I'm gonna get that instead. Okay, I'm good with that. You just have, so it's a good question. Shift the mindset.
Yeah. And sometimes tempers are going to flare during the renovation,
Yes.
but at the end of the day, it's all worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Coffee or wine after a tough day of work?
Definitely some beautiful Okanagan wine.
Oh, yes. I love that answer. Red or white?
Depends on the season.
Oh, nice.
White in the summer and a chilled glass and a beautiful bottle of red in the wintertime.
I'm with you there. So what's something that people would never guess about you?
That I love poetry. I love poetry. I write poetry. I love poetry.
Oh, I love that. Biggest misconception that people have about divorce lawyers?
People think that family law lawyers have to completely emotionally separate from their cases, which we are human beings. We cannot do that. We are emotionally impacted by our clients. That can't be on the table. It can't be the first thing that we lead with because that's sympathy, and then you end up not being able to help people. But I think people think family law lawyers can just leave the emotions at the door, and it's not true. All of the good family law lawyers that I know care very deeply about their clients.
If you weren't a lawyer, what would you be doing right now?
If I had any talent at all, I'd be singing in a band. But I, alas, do not have any musical talent. So, yes.
Finish my sentence. A woman going through divorce needs to remember
she's not alone.
Thank you very much, Karen.
It's my absolute pleasure.
I
Lovely
really
to
love
see you.
having conversations with you, and I really appreciate you being here today. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce Circle podcast. Together, we're rewriting the story of divorce, from endings to empowered new beginnings. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.